I just wanted to get a couple words in from the group activity. So, to finalize the group activity that you all participated in, I'm going to go around later and collect the pieces of paper that you had written your words on, and I will tape them to the wall of the room where we had lunch. And feel free to discuss, look at other people's, but also keep discussing what you read with your group. Just keep the conversation going. That's what the purpose of having the papers on the walls is. So you'll see those papers on the walls in the same room where we had lunch soon. So the next couple days you can keep going back to that. And then a lot of people have been asking me what's in the program for the pair activity that's happening at the end of today. So after Alistair's presentation. And I'm just going to give you a brief insight right now. What I'd like to do, this is supposed to be fun and it's the end of the day. So I thought it would be really cool to look at a practice. So just forget about the theory for a second. Just look at a practice. Select one practice. I made a list of practices. So this is when we say practicing practices, ways of practicing, and all of these theory papers. We're talking about this kind of stuff. Nordic walking. There's actually a paper on Nordic walking. That's why I put it up there. Typing. Playing a sport. Snacking. There's a great paper, practice paper on snacking. It's really great. Bicycling, text messaging. These are practices. What I'd like you to do in a pair activity is select one of these or come up with your own. Fun, but a real practice, and then try to research it. So go online, try to describe the performative aspects of the practice. Try to talk about the different ways of performances. Talk about the practice emergence, maybe. Or if it no longer exists, the disappearance of that practice. Or how it's entangled with other practices. All right? So I don't really expect any kind of groundbreaking theory papers, but I think it's a really fun exercise, and I do this all the time with myself because I live in the Netherlands and I bicycle every day. Bicycling is a really great practice to try to think through elements of practice theory in your mind as you're cycling to work. So, does that make sense? Cool. All right, that's what we'll do. With that, I'm going to hand it over to our speakers.
Okay, the practice of being in the spotlight. Yeah, let me start by saying this is an experiment, and it is a workshop with the emphasis on work. Don't be expecting Malin or myself to lecture. We do want to introduce ourselves, of course. Karen Verduijn from the Vrije Universiteit, Free University in Amsterdam. And Malin...
Malin Tillmar from Linnaeus University in Växjö and Kalmar, Sweden.
And I think it's useful to sketch what brought about this particular event you're now attending. Would you like to start?
I could do that.
It was
actually three we had been in contact, Karen and I, before, but we met the first time when this conference was held in Växjö at my home university about a year ago, and started to talk about these issues. And it was three different events during that workshop which forced us to think and read more. So it was about the PhD workshop that we had and the method sessions we had there. It was about the Chris Dyer's keynote speech, and it was about some of the happenings in the room. So starting with them, and after that, for this year, we have talked to each other and discussed. So starting with the first thing, we had a PhD workshop where we talked about different kinds of methodology, came into ethnographic studies and an active research. Bengt Johannesson was there. And that got us also talking about autoethnography and studying ourselves and our own practices, our academic practices. And then,
for those of you who have been to Växjö last year, you may recall that Chris Dyert in his keynote, I think rightfully, urged us to not only look or turn to the founding fathers of the practice domain. So do not only take up on the work of Bourdieu and Giddens, Nicolini and Chatsky and Richard Whittington, but don't forget the founding mothers. So he particularly mentioned Karen Barrett and Donna Haraway and Judith Butler, but I think we could easily add Rosie Braidotti, Silvia Gerardi, and also Tara Fenwick. Another occasion, who were actually there last year in Växjö? Do you? Yeah, Bill, you were there. I recall. Do you also recall that we were at one point? We were in that big room. It was after the keynotes, and we had the panel discussion. And in itself, that was pretty okay. But of course, there were the white men in front of the room, sitting behind the table, forming the panel. This in itself, there's nothing wrong with that, but or perhaps there is. But the thing is that people noticed. So there were people in the room, and they said, well, this can't be, if this is our academic practice, we should be able to do something about it. We should be able to change it. So one of the audience stepped down, but it was also a man, and also sat at the table, and there was laughter. But together, I think we also, came to the conclusion that we could not alter this then and there. So, yeah, I think it's fair to say
Yes.
that these are three happenings that have actually made us start to read those founding mothers' work and discuss and explore and wonder, what could be ways to deal with this. So,
And to add to that, maybe we should also emphasize that it was quite clear to us that all these practices, they were all unintentional happenings.
Definitely.
And it was frustrating, I think, to everyone. And we thought, if we as action researchers in a room cannot together alter these practices, the practice is probably very strong. So that also, again, provoked the need for learning more.
Yeah, thank you for this addition. So there was privileging going on, but definitely unintentional so. And also we were reflexive of it. So we thought, let's read and let's see what we can come up with in terms of sensitizing notion, techniques and vocabularies. And we have become particularly inspired by actually three writings. So this is a book by Karen Barrett, Meeting the Universe Halfway. Are people here familiar with Karen Barrett's work? As said, it's not going to be a lecture, but to give you like a short idea or clue what this is about. Well, Karen Barrett, she proposes that we shouldn't discern between matter and meaning or matter and discourse, but the two are entangled. So every entanglement being produced is produced by a diversity of elements. The term how matter matters is one that you typically relate back to Karen Barrett's work. And if you start to wonder, if it's about mattering and issues of concern, then you're starting to wonder about consequences of such intra-activity and all those elements involved in producing particular entanglements. And this brought us on the road to another promising article or inspirational article, because one of such consequences can very well be happenings that become stuck.
Exactly. And the concept stuck happenings is a main concept in this article by Anderson, 2017, that I'm holding in my hand. A storytelling of a becoming critical engagement with what happens. And this paper, you will get a reference later for those who want, really intrigued me because it's about what racial happenings, and she tells a story about her study in Africa, and Africa was brought up this morning, and a few of us are doing studies there. So, and I think this was my experience of being in the prioritized position and wanting to alter that position, wanting to alter the position of suddenly being the one expected to talk first, expected to eat first, expected to be first, and not really wanting that and wanting to alter it, but not being able to. So Camilla Anderson talks about this, her experience about this in this paper, and how to alter and try to resist these happenings. And she draws on Braidotti, for example, in that work. So that was a source of inspiration for us. So some creative counter-actualizations, which we will actually be doing, all of us together, in a minute.
I hope. Yeah, with this particular writing, well, the workshop already came to be more about enacting resistance, because it was indeed, becoming about how we could alter stuck happenings. And, well, you can say that this work, Baret's work, but also how Anderson positions her work, it's in the post-human, more than human kind of way of understanding things, not wanting to do away with the fact that there are human beings, but just to look at our involvement in the producing of practices in a different way. But that of course makes you wonder, what then happens to the self, to the sense of self? And there we found another very interesting reference, a very interesting writing, an article by Harding et al., Organization Studies, who indeed wonder, where does this all leave the self? But not a self as fixed. This is about a self as performatively constituted. So we are at the moment performatively constituting one another, and there are materials involved, and that's the very thing we would like to unravel. And of course, this also then is about resistance, but not resistance as in something that just comes about, but also as something that is produced in the entangling of all these happenings and events. Am I forgetting something?
I don't think so.
Well, okay, good. If Malin says so, it should be right. So what we're going to do now, to come back to the actual workshop, we're going to trace the interactions that constitute our entanglement. So we're going to wonder, how are we entangled and how does matter matter? And we're going to, in particular, look at our own academic, habitually performed, unintentional, stuck happenings. So there's a bit of reflection going on here. We're going to wonder if and how the altering of matter might, hopefully, change the situation and also make us realize how matter matters. We're going to try and activate, oh, this sounds so scary, the bodily sensory experiences to see if we can arrive at counter-actualizations together as the entanglement of being here in the room right now. So shall we then just go to the work?
We should.
We should, I think, yeah.
And we will start by warming up a little bit. That is, we will start by having you discuss in pairs, 2 and 2. This is an academic practice that we somehow recognize, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to spend the next 5 minutes to talk about, if you talk about 2 and 2 as you sit, what are our academic habits and how are materials inscribed in those academic habits and what matters to us. So sort of taking stock and inventing some of the academic practices. Just a few minutes. Then
doing a mapping is what Anderson calls this.
Exactly. So to map that up, and then we'll move to more adventures. This is sounding worse than it is, Karen.
Oh no, it's going to be fun.
So please go ahead.
Yes, 5 minutes.
this one. Oh yeah, you want to also go back to Harding with the slides. Fine. Okay, if you want to do that. All right. Right, so time moves quickly. Time passes quickly when we have fun. Right, so should we take some stock? You've got some good. Let's take some stock.
We're discussing with Alistair that we mostly see bad habits, actually. We had a lot of habits, mostly bad. No, but yeah, we're discussing about, when we do reviews, literature reviews, or we are searching in a databases for particular topics. Actually, one of the main habits that came into our mind is that actually we instrumentally read. We renounce to read without a purpose, as when we were students, or in an utopian country. We only read, particular stuff, and rapidly, because there are so many things to read for a particular topic. And so with databases, such a wonderful material, stuff, we are stuck into this process of reading fast, instrumentally, and without being able to actually go deeper, maybe in the thinking of somebody else. Conference agenda is also it's a material something that actually inscribed us into a community. And this is also about temporality and space moving towards places. And the problem is that this also, it's an imperative that makes us act rapidly without having maybe the time to think appropriately about what we are doing. And another bad habit, and this was the first that came into my mind, is that actually is the habit of working together and in a community of practice. And the problem is that there is an isomorphism, it's a normativization of our productions in order to legitimize, of course, and to build intelligibility. But this is also a problem in terms of originality and resistance and courage to think by ourselves. And sometimes what I see is that actually we say each other more interesting things when we discuss with a coffee, no issue, no instrumentalization of the situation, whereas in the papers we stay in the norm. Yeah, and this is a sad habit. Well.
So there was many issues, but you got them down. Reading instrumentally, and then you said teamwork.
No, it's conformity, actually.
Conformity.
All community of practice
Conformity.
And normativization, actually.
Normativization
effects.
and conformity. Good. Thank you. That's a good summary. Alistair?
The other point we raised was that our materiality, our artifacts, actually promote this particular thing. Gone are the days when we would browse in a library, as we did as students. Now we type in a keyword and we get a list of papers that are exactly what we're looking for. But maybe what we should be looking for is not what we think we should be looking for, we should be looking elsewhere. So the mechanisms, the technology is all about keeping us in our silos when we should actually be getting out of our academic silos.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much for good issues. Yeah? You need a mic over there?
We spoke about a lot of things we don't do, so we kept getting coy and saying, yeah, we do reading, but then really we do a lot of not reading. I download so many articles and don't read them. So that's definitely a habit that we have. And the sort of listening, but then really we're not listening. So many of us have been distracted in some of these conversations today. A lot of the writing, but then we do a lot of not writing. I'm always talking to people about how I need to write. So yeah, we kept oscillating between the doing and not doing, which are very much our habits, I think.
Yeah. Right. So there's some kind of hypocrisy around that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so we were talking about, with regards to research, the practice of critiquing, which very quickly becomes the practice of criticizing as well. So there's this kind of balance between, oh, we're doing this well, we're critiquing, we're joining a conversation, but also we're picking flaws and criticizing.
Great, good. We will come back to that, critique versus criticism. Any other academic practices?
Hello. What about legitimizing action, such as the way we strive to publish, and not only publish, but publish in 4 stars, that we strive to attend conferences, that we strive to find research grants, just to legitimize what we do. So we're sustaining, if you like, our institutional field.
Yeah, great. That's a very good point as well. Then Claire? Yeah? Or Sylvia? Claire or Sylvia?
Okay, so maybe 2 things in our group. First, the term habits.
Yeah.
Of course, Sylvia didn't like it. And we asked, would it be better if we replace it by practice? Okay, what is the difference? So, okay. And yeah, we mentioned one thing on, it's linked to previous things, it's authority, that we are very respectful of authority, and that it's also embodied in our practice, the way we choose article we read. Okay, we're going to read papers from good, highly ranked journals, known authors, and if someone who is known in the field says something, we will tend to believe it more. So we're really embodying authority in our practices.
Overly respecting authorities.
That's the question, but at
Yeah,
least...
question mark,
yeah.
right. Neil, yeah.
Yes, we talked about categorization. So how we tend to say, oh, I'm in the field of this, you know, I sometimes go to that, or I try to contribute to this literature, but that the way we talk about our research or present our research or write our research is really about fitting into certain categories.
Right.
Yeah, and then some of the things that were said already. So yes, so really this instrumental, I think this goes to the instrumental part as well. Yeah, so categorization, segmentation, and the talk about theoretical contribution. So also, this is also kind of segmentation in a way that we distinguish between the empirical material, which can be very interesting in itself, but there needs to be a theoretical contribution.
Yeah, theorizing. Great.
There needs to be some time.
There needs to be some time left. So I think, yeah.
Perhaps it's good if we move up a bit, because I think it's good to emphasize an element that also comes to the surface in the Harding et al. Article, and that is how, when the self is not recognized in particular entanglements, that there is a sense of the self being muted. So basically this has left us to wonder and realize how oftentimes being in the academic entanglement, we have felt challenged and muted ourselves. Just to give you an idea of why we moved in this direction, because I think that from the discussions, I think we can go on for a long time about this, particularly if we move toward the real what matters to us. But I think this also creates, well, at least it says something about our sense of urgency as to why we wanted to dive into the enacting of resistance towards the stuck happenings. And from the discussion, I would say we already gained some ideas of how we can alter academic stuck happenings, if not by visiting a library from time to time, rather than do the fast searching in databases. Are there other suggestions? How can we alter? Should we alter? I think that's already been affirmed, right? We should alter some of those habits. Yes?
Maybe related to the first one, reading instrumentally or for confirmation. So indeed, this point of actually having one section in the paper that is kind of countering what you have found, or this is how things happen in different ways. So being somehow forced by the editor to have some other examples in ways they're different, that maybe also forces you to read in different ways and actually go to a library to increase the chance that you find something that actually counters the thing that you have.
Good point.
Yeah, so maybe I think we're stuck in an academic bubble, right? It's not new. But if you realize that when you talk to normal people, I would say. So I'm staying in Airbnb. So yesterday I check in, there's this couple, my age, and they say, so you're going to the conference, right? So I say it's about entrepreneurship as practice. And they say, so it's great, so it's about practitioners, right? And I say, yeah, so there are many managers in there. And I say, no. And then they start looking at you and they say, why is there no managers? I say, well, because it's the academic world, right? Because we talk amongst ourselves. And then they ask, so what's the sense about talking among yourself if you want to help practitioners, right? And that's where you get stuck, because it's hard to explain this to normal people, right? And so I think, in a way, we're stuck in an academic bubble. And I think the problem is that we are so locked into this bubble, and the bubble is so strong. The rules and regulations around the bubble are so strong. So I have no fantasy about how we can change, this very strong and very ingrained academic mill that we're in, right? But I mean, it's true, you realize this when you talk to normal people, that they are often puzzled, like, what are you doing then? And I say, well, we're doing research, but what for, right? And then you run out of questions, right? Who tells you what to do then? Yeah, I mean, so that's just my reflection on this being stuck, really, indeed.
So another aspect of being stuck and getting unstuck, I think, has to do with the way we meet with each other and the places where we meet with each other. So in a sense, an example of getting unstuck could be altering where we sit when we are actually in a conversation with each other. And also the timing, because often, we work on models like we have half an hour meeting or 1 hour meetings, depending on the purpose of it. But altering that could open up many opportunities. So, for example, there is research going on, and one aspect that I'm very curious is academics working in co-working spaces. The fact that, in general, academics are spending less time within their office and more time finding other places where being surrounded by others, that is used as a way of, purposively trying to unstuck some habits or rebuilding them somewhere else, I think has potential.
Perfect. And that's when we move from our interpretation to our experimentation of how we sit, how we walk, and how we stand.
And I think it's fair to say that amongst us we agree that it's not easy to change stuck happenings, and that is also why we decided we need to do something with the sensitizing techniques and notions, etc. And we want to literally experiment right here, right now in this room. So we are going to ask you all to stand up and walk around, sensing the room, not speaking. And we are also going to warn you that don't leave the room, by the way. And we're also going to be handing some of you some materials during the walking with the question to pass these materials on. Okay? Have fun.
Thank you so much. We could do this for a long time, but time is passing, so you may take your artifacts and go take your seats.
Okay, look, we should take a photo.
And where is the photographer?
Do you have a phone? Can you take a photo? This is lovely. The materials have connected them.
I missed the instructions. I was back there.
You need to pass it on.
It's over. Oh, the practice is over. Is this a French flower?
Yeah. From just outside.
Thank you.
Very French flower. We have the. We can leave this. But we have the.
Everybody was walking along.
So this was the bit also with the the activating bodily sensory experiences, and we're keen to learn your experiences, basically.
Exactly. We have a few specific questions, but first, the general one. Any reflections on how you experienced this practice, this exercise? Very nice. So it is a feeling, a nice feeling.
A mindfulness exercise, actually. As a effect, we are relaxed.
Yeah. A nice experience, relaxed and
Being here without being here, and now, with all the senses, without a purpose. And this is quite close to mindfulness.
Anyone with the opposite experience who dares to say so? Yeah, David.
The potential of being like provocative.
Provocative?
Yeah, like potentiality of provocating or doing something provocative.
Provocative. Okay. Yeah.
You wanted to do something provocative. Is that what you mean, or?
You found the exercise provocative.
No, not the exercise, but the exercise itself had the potential of doing something provocative, such as not passing on the stone, or like tempering with the exercise or the way we sense or feel, experience the room.
So resisting.
Precisely, that's a very interesting point, because one of the questions I would also like to raise is, did you want to pass on the stone? Who of you had a stone or the flower or the stick in your hands?
What stone?
Sorry?
What stone?
You didn't have the stone.
Did you have a flower? You didn't have anything. You didn't get anything.
Ah, that's not good. But really, who had the stone in their hands? And yes. Nobody did want to take it from you. Okay. What to do? Yes, Bill?
Did you feel an obligation once you got something to give it away, or did anyone just keep it? There wasn't an exchange aspect. So once you got an exchange, then I felt obligated to continue the exchange process.
Well, basically the question was to pass on whatever you were given. But I can also understand that this makes you want to be provocative in a way and hang on.
You were supposed to. My sense is, I didn't hear any of that. All I
Okay.
all of a sudden people had stuff to give away. Then I decided I would kind of give it away as well. And I wondered, maybe I should keep it.
Did anybody want to hang on, except from Bill, want to hang on to their flower or stone? Yes?
I did it one angle, but I would like to give back to the same person.
Okay.
I follow her and took her. I saw that she was surprised that I gave back the stick.
Okay. Did you feel comfortable walking around?
Better than sitting here, right?
Did you make eye contact with other people walking around? Yes? Occasionally.
I found that the eye contact only happened after the exchanges. So before, there was a whole bunch of us walking around and not everyone was looking at each other. A lot of people were kind of looking away. But once you were down there with the exchange things, then there was more interaction.
Okay.
Interesting observation.
That's interesting. So the material object actually enabled eye contact. The material enabled eye contact.
For me,
Yeah.
yes.
I thought that if you had the material object, you had more attention off of people.
Ah.
People were interested in you because you had the object.
Okay. So it gave power. Yeah. And
Yeah.
the question, another question relating back to Harding is, what does it happen to the self if you do not get recognized, if you do not get, if you never get anything, not the stick, not the stone, not the flower?
Yeah, so
Rob?
for me, I think it's related to that. What I found annoying is that you couldn't talk. And I wanted to say hi back to somebody I've met on the previous AAP, but, well, you cannot talk, so that's problematic. If you walk around and you cannot talk, you may bump into each other. So if you nearly miss somebody, you tend to say, oh, I'm sorry, but you cannot. So actually, by preventing a crash, but not be able to say, oh, I'm sorry, it feels like you're kind of rude and not like recognize the other in it, and that you did something to them which they might find uncomfortable. So this not talking for me was actually quite uncomfortable. So it's also about the other self, I guess.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to raise, oh sorry, I'm coming back to you. I want to raise one more final perhaps question. Did you make use of the material in the room? Did you climb on the chairs? Or did you just... On the stairs, okay.
Yeah. So why didn't, no, but I didn't see anyone standing on the chairs or jumping over here. Sorry?
He's sitting, how can he stand?
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Being based here, you see new avenues. There was one more question there. It's a comment.
I was touching the material, right? So, you know, so nice kind of carpet. Comparably cheap walls, if you really knock at them, right? You can see that's not good material. You go behind, you realize there's a lot of technical stuff behind, hidden. So the front stage and the backstage, So it's nice to touch also, actually. I mean, glass-like, plates and so on. So, yeah.
Great. So a lot of insight. I think it's time to start wrapping.
It is time to start wrapping things up. We're giving you our sources of inspiration, of course. And yeah, of course, we ourselves have also wondered, what's the point in all this? What did we want to achieve with this exercise? Yeah, but they're here. Oh yeah, we can send oh yeah, I have a PDF of the Barrett book as well. Yes, I will.
Yes,
I will.
we can do that.
So yeah, what did we want to achieve in doing this? And you can tell us whether or not we succeeded in doing that. Of course, generally and ideally, an awareness of how matter matters. Like with a drill interrupting the session this morning, Neil not being heard anymore. I mean, these are obvious things, but we want to kind of create a sense and an awareness of the mattering of matter, of course. And another thing is that we thought that when you walk around the room like that, you cannot like show your intellectual muscles. I mean, it's less about hierarchy, or is it? I mean, it can also be a matter of who you hand the materials to. But perhaps by walking around, rather than showing your intellectual muscles, we can create a more, well, equal setting rather than a thing I think is also associated with our stuck happenings, and that is the issue with hierarchy. So we have wanted to invoke a lessening of hierarchy and potentially some more equality. The third thing, I think the exercise could make us wonder if we can make contact at all, if it is not through our regular procedures and channels. And actually it was already affirmed that it is possible and that the materials help in that matter. Okay, another point was when we leave the mode of either talking, listening, or commenting, because that is usually what we do, and that's usually why we have rooms like this. If we leave those modes, does this then change anything? Do you think it changed anything? Yes? Presence. Yeah. Okay. It does change something, that's hopeful. And last but not least, we feel that this exercise this experiment well, shows that if stones and flowers can raise a sentiment, then of course, every other material we forever use in our academic lives and in our academic entanglements, of course they also matter. So it is an invitation, to perhaps become more aware of this as a community. Am I forgetting?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we have seen already today, as you said, Karen, with the materiality of this, with the drills and with the room, and we had some problems to get a whiteboard and with all of this. So, I mean, we all know that our academic practices matter, and I think we saw a little bit more of that now. So what we wanted to do with this was to stir around a little bit, perhaps, in the pot, to make a contribution to our academic practices, to our community of practice as EAP, and also to maybe evoke some thoughts about the possibility for us to do autoethnographic work, also within the academy, and also some theoretical points and with this reading, and then of course also the founding mothers aspect of it. So we have been trying to, in 1 hour, do a lot of things at the same time and also have some fun, and at least I think we succeeded for ourselves with the last point. And then for the rest, we can have a discussion.